Crikey, Steel fans. The Steelers have signed Russell Wilson. Well, that's what he intends to do. That's what he intends to do once the tampering period, once it all begins. Today, Monday, the 12th of March in America, this is when it's kicking off. He was released by the Broncos. He met with the Steelers. Obviously, all accounts went well. The Steelers signing Russell Wilson to what is believed to be one of the vet minimum contracts of $1.2 million. Denver owed him $39 million. They won't have to pay whatever the Steelers pay, so they'll owe him their high set 37s, early 38 mils, depending on absolutely defined specifics. We'll find out all this information over the next course of the next 24, 48 hours, but the Steelers are bringing in a very experienced quarterback. What does this mean for Mason Rudolph? We'll have to see whether he comes in as well. You have to think he's probably going elsewhere, though, where Kenny Pickett's going to be the main backup. Steelers still need to figure out what the hell is going to happen with Kenny Pickett. It looks to be it's only a one-year proposition. Russ said recently in the last couple of weeks he plans to win 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. Well, Steel fans, let's bring it on. He had 26 TDs, 8 interceptions last year. Not a bad season. He still was benched for Stidham. There was a lot of friction between him and Sean Payton, a lot of different things, but he gets a fresh start with the Steelers, gets a fresh start with Mike Tomlin. Interesting to see whether the Steelers will still trade Deontay. But let's see what it means for the Steelers, because it is a huge thing to bring in a guy like Russell Wilson. Absolutely huge thing. So I thought I'd compare him to a couple of the other free agents that we saw come up in this free agent window, guys that haven't signed with other people. Now, obviously, there's a few names on this list in Tyrod Taylor, Tannehill, that some people think are past it. Some people will think Winston's more past it than Tannehill. But these were kind of the most experienced guys across the free agent crop, plus Russell Wilson. So Jameis Winston, Tyrod Taylor, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, and Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm not going to go through every stat on this page, but as you can see in front of you, all the green highlights where they are the leader. Russell Wilson played the most amount of games. Fine. His approximate value, so what he's done against the quarterback position season on season, is incredibly high. It's the highest out of a lot of them at 179. His quarterback record is the best. His completion record is not the best here, but it's the second best. So that's pretty close. Has the most amount of pass yards. He has the highest average pass yards per attempt with Jameis Winston. He has 334 pass TDs. That's 70 more than Kirk Cousins. 74, I should say. Sorry. Interceptions. The low is for Tyrod Taylor, but obviously he's played the least amount of these guys. The Russell Wilson doesn't have the most either. Both Kirk Cousins and Tannehill have more interceptions, with 115 for Tannehill and 110 for Kirk Cousins. Quarterback rating on their career is 100. That's triple digits. Sorry, I should say triple digits for Russell Wilson. That is the only guy above 100 in this list for his career quarterback rating. Rush yardage, 5,307 yards. That is the most. That is more than double his nearest competitor there in Tyrod Taylor. It's more than Tannehill. It's more than the rest of these guys, obviously. Yards per rush attempt, he's 0.2 behind Tyrod Taylor, but 5.4 when you've done double the amount of rushing, well over double. That's incredible. Rush TDs, 29. Again, he's got the most. Fantasy points, if people even care about that in these stats, doesn't really count, but he's got the most as well. No wonder. Look at the statistical production. He has 1 All-Pro compared to the rest of them. He's got 8 Pro Bowls. That's double his nearest competitor in Kirk Cousins. And he has a championship, so does Tyrod Taylor, but Russell Wilson has it as a starter. He obviously went to a Super Bowl as well, an extra time. So huge for what the Steelers are bringing in on Russell Wilson. Absolutely huge. You look at it as well in terms of across his career completion percentage. That is up there with these guys as well. As I say, 64.7. I know we said it just earlier, but I wanted to hit on that because that is huge when you look at the type of offenses that Russell Wilson has had. As I said, he led in rush yards. I think that's really key in terms of being able to have that mobility that Mike Tomlin's really favored the last few seasons. The other percentage that I found really interesting is when you look at advanced passing accuracy with Pro Football Reference. 7.9% bad throws. Now, we know Russell Wilson likes to scramble. He likes to extend plays, but that is incredibly low. And the only guys ahead of him are Tannehill and Tyrod Taylor, who have not nearly played the same amount of games. So incredible to see that 7.9% is an incredibly low percentage for these in terms of these bad percentage throws. Equally, his on-target percentage is actually quite high when you look at the overall scrambling. Does some of the running around in the backfield as well. It's actually quite high. Only Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins are ahead, but Baker Mayfield has not played nearly the same amount of snaps throughout the course of his career, and Kirk Cousins is nearly ahead, and Kirk Cousins plays in a lot more of a stable, rigid offense in terms of the style of player that he is. So that I thought is kind of interesting very much as well. The other thing too is in terms of being blitzed, Russell Wilson's been the most blitzed quarterback. So it is going to be more likely that you're going to have a bad throw. It's going to be harder to make on-target throws when you're being blitzed the most. And it's a considerable amount more as well. So kind of super interesting here in terms of the quarterback the Steelers are bringing into the mix. If we look at all, obviously, as Russell Wilson as well in terms of his career, his quarterback rating has moved around a lot over the course of his career. He had 98 in this past season, a season high of 100, a career high of 110.9 in 2018. But his interception percentage, I wanted to look at that as well because Kenny Pickett had one of the lowest in the leagues last year behind CJ Stroud. But 1.8% was, I think, equal to about 5th or 6th in the league. And there was a few guys at that spot. That was Russell Wilson. And then 1.8% of his throws resulted in an interception last year, but he had 26 TDs. Obviously, this ledger between touchdowns and interceptions is a lot higher than what we've seen out of Kenny Pickett. As I said, he had 66.4% completion percentage last year. That's pretty high. 2/3 of his passes, obviously. He had a 7-8 record, but there were other things going on for the Broncos. There were also games that he was benched in and instead came in. So there's a lot of different things that you got to factor into that as well. But in terms of this, the Steelers do get better at quarterback. And that's the ultimate thing. Omar Khan said at the start of the combine, he had a number one mission objective. He had a responsibility to make the Steelers better, for them to win. We talked about Mike Tomlin regretting not winning it for Pouncey as Super Bowl. Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, they're all those sorts of guys. You've also got Najee on a deal where you've got to think of what you can do fifth year option. Even if you don't take the fifth year option, if this is your last year with Najee, unless you then choose to re-sign him, which I think they should. I think they should decline the fifth year option and sign him on a 2-year or 3-year deal, particularly if Russ is playing well. That makes sense. So I actually think it's less likely that Najee signs his fifth year option. But you've got the run game in Najee and Warren. You've got a gun receiver in Pickens who could be, just as an enigma, just as a playmaker as Metcalf, right? Then you've got to figure out a speedster guy. I'm still not sure Russell Wilson. I'm still not sure that Deontay Johnson is going to fit the Arthur Smith offense. So you move him, you go get another guy. But it's very, very interesting what the Steelers are doing. Steelers get better. I like it. I know my colleague on the Steelers Global Perspective, my co-host on the Steelers Global Perspective, which is a series of content that airs throughout each weekend, Shannon White. He's not as keen on Russell Wilson going into this. And can't wait to talk about that reaction on this week's set of content with him. But he was concerned about the atmosphere and the team and the camaraderie. I think the Steelers have got a good enough culture internally. I think they've got enough experienced players. I think Mike Tomlin can bring them together, regardless of what that comes with Russ. But hey, the Steelers are making moves. They're out there to win. The Khan artist strikes again. So as always, go Steelers.